Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
It is indeed a happy Monday. And
November
this is
the 18th. Can you
yes,
believe that?
yes. Time is flying. The year is almost over. But this is, speaking of happy Monday, this is a full circle moment for me, because never in my wildest dreams did I think, when I was a freshman at Hampton University, that one day I'd be having this type of conversation with the president of Hampton University joining us. So this is truly a full circle moment. Today, we're going to talk about how to move forward by giving back. And that's really going to be the theme of our show today. And we're just going to go ahead and introduce and present our guest for the hour, who's no stranger to most who are listening and watching us. But I'll go ahead and do this. So, Lieutenant General Darrell K. Williams, United States Army, retired. He's an extraordinary leader and the 13th president of Hampton University. He brings to Hampton nearly 4 decades of proven strategic leadership experience and a record of accomplishment. Upon his graduation from Hampton and commissioning as a distinguished military graduate into the United States Army in 1983, Lieutenant General Williams served throughout the Continental U.S., Europe, the Pacific, and the Middle East. Since returning to his alma mater as president in 2022, the university has experienced a remarkable 31% increase in enrollment and an 84% retention rate for freshmen. So please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, President Darrell Williams.
Well, Eric, I have to admit that may be the most exciting and in some cases unbelievable introduction that I've ever had. But I'm so extraordinarily happy to be here, especially considering your theme tonight about giving back. Something you talked about right up front that really captured it all for me was this idea about full circle. I too thought about tonight and my whole return to Hampton University, what you and I affectionately call our home by the sea, as a full circle moment. If you thought you were surprised to be on a call tonight talking with me, imagine my surprise in terms of it being a full circle moment of being a student here and coming back to be the president. But I just couldn't be more delighted to be on this conversation with you and with Ted tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Once again, this is truly an honor to have you on. We've got one of our Hamptonians, my classmate, Kyle Hibbler, is watching us, and he's saying that he's glad to have our esteemed president on our show today. And I'm sure we'll have other Hamptonians and people. Just please comment. Let us know you're here. If you got a question, please pose a question. But President Williams, I definitely wanted to acknowledge you just for the outstanding success you've achieved in the military as a general, and then in the private sector and leadership. You certainly had all kinds of options based off of your success and background. What was it that motivated you to come back to Hampton? And really, you're moving forward by giving back. I mean, what motivated you to come back to Hampton and to become the president?
Ted, it's a great question, and I get asked that question often. And really, I think your title for tonight about giving back encapsulates the whole reason why I came back to our home by the sea. And so, yes, I spent 37 years in the United States Army, and I had a variety of different experiences from small unit level all the way to what I would call the corporate and enterprise level. And then I had some experiences in the corporate sector. But when I had the opportunity to come back to Hampton University and to give a little bit back to the university that gave me and my family so much, it was too difficult to pass up. And so truly, this was all about our home by the sea. If I never personally received another accolade in my life, I've had more than my share. I've had wonderful experiences in the military and travel all around the world, working with some of the finest young women and men in America, out defending our nation. And then I get a chance to come to Hampton University, who's also producing some of the finest young men and women in America who'll take us deep into the 21st century. And so the idea of giving back and continuing to make an impact on our community and on our world was the whole reason why I'm back at our home by the sea.
Excellent. And I just know, like, just going to Hampton was a life-changing experience for me. So, like, how did your experience at Hampton mold and shape you into who you would ultimately become?
You know, that's a topic I could talk about all day long, but I'll try and bucketize it a little bit into a couple of common themes. And so one of them I'll talk about is the history and legacy of the institution. You know, as I do, that anyone who's ever attended Hampton University at some point in time has walked down to the mighty Emancipation Oak Tree. Emancipation Oak Tree at Hampton's campus is where the first Southern reading of the Emancipation Proclamation took place in 1863. And then in terms of history, we also have on our campus the oldest African American history museum in the United States of America. And then if that's not enough, it's our beautiful chapel that was built largely by the hands of students that was completed in 1886. And then it's the natural surrounding of this campus located right along the Hampton River and on a peninsula that gives the place such a sense of community. And so this whole idea of history and culture coming together in a place that provides such community is just phenomenal. And it has a whole lot to do with why I am back at Hampton and how I was able to achieve what we did. The next thing I'll talk about is my academic preparation. From the day that I left Hampton University until my return and throughout my career, I always felt that the academic experience that I had at this great university was absolutely second to none. I went on to graduate school in several different places, and my academic preparation here at Hampton prepared me to be successful in all of those locations. The next thing I'll talk about are the relationships and the connections. You know, as I do, Eric, and Ted, I'm sure you had the same feelings coming out of the great Norfolk State University, that there's nothing like the network that you develop when you attend an historically Black college or university. There were friends that I graduated with over 40 years ago that I'm still in contact with today. People often ask me, well, how many people are you in touch with? Well, even before coming back as a president, I can honestly say that I could reach out and touch 100+ people at any given point in time. And if I wanted to come back to homecoming on any given year, I could plug right back into that network in a broader way. And so I think, to directly answer your question, the things that sort of help shape me and mold me into the leader that I have become, it would really be those early values that I learned at Hampton University. And we heard over and over again about things like being the standard of excellence, and Hampton University being providing you with an education for life. You heard over and over in our alma mater that talked about allowing your life to do the singing. We love the academic preparation we have here, and we love the relationships that we're able to develop. All of those things and more are what I got at Hampton University, and why I'm back and how I've being able to navigate the successes of life.
So if you could go back in time and become a mentor to that undergraduate version of yourself, knowing what you now know, what advice would you give to that undergraduate version of yourself?
Another great question. And so, as much as I feel like I took advantage of the Hampton experience, I think I would have immersed myself even more into Hampton and taken even more full advantage of the relationships. And so, the most valuable piece of what I took away from the university was, in fact, the relationships. And I think when you get out into the working world, there's a tendency to allow that plant, the relationship, to go unwatered. And it's only after some period of time that you look back over your shoulder and you realize what the experience was all about. And then you reach back out to connect with that network. And so, what I would tell a younger version of myself is to understand and be intentional about the relationships that you established and then how you maintain those relationships when you leave. You know, as the old saying goes, you know, a plant without water dies. Relationships still have to be watered, they still have to be fertilized in order to keep them alive. I've been very fortunate that my friends that were with me through those years at Hampton have remained connected with me in a very positive way, but I would invest even more in relationships.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's funny you say that because that's a message we try to get across to our audience. Ted, I mean, I'm sure you can speak to this. We're always talking about a lot of times you go into things thinking that it's all about, oh, I've got to be at this level of competency. I've got to have this, these types of grades. But the relationship thing is just so critical to help you open doors that you just can't open on your own. So
You know,
that's
the other thing that came to mind, you know, after I finished was this idea of, in terms of taking full advantage of this experience, is I would tell my younger self that you really don't have any time to waste.
Hmm.
You know, you come to college as a freshman and you come from North Carolina or from here in Virginia or California or Texas or Hawaii or from wherever. And you arrive on campus and 4 years seems like a long time, seems like a very long time. And I have time to spare. And then your sophomore year rolls around and you really think you know things pretty well at that point. But before you know it, you're approaching your senior year and you're asking, where did the time go? And you can't possibly go back and make up for the experiences that you didn't have. And so if I were talking to my younger self, I would say, be intentional about the experience that you want to have, what you want to get out of your college experience, and then start that journey from day one.
I think that's great advice. So you returned to Hampton in 2022, and since then, Hampton has experienced a 31% increase in enrollment. It ranks in the top 8% of universities worldwide. So what are some of the specific leadership habits from your military experience that you feel have contributed to this success?
Well, first, I wouldn't attribute all of that success to Darrell Williams. I have learned in my life and in my leadership experience that anytime you experience successes of that magnitude, it's about the team. It's about, at a university level, it's as much about all of our staff. It's about the connection of our students with our phenomenal faculty. It's about the environment that we place around our students. It's about scholarship dollars as you get to this point about giving back. It's about the reputation of the university that's been built over time. It's about our alumni base who has to be excited about those students and bringing them back. And so to answer your question, yes, I believe that I brought some positive leadership traits to it. But the first trait that I would talk about is the ability to build extraordinary teams. And we have a phenomenal team here at Hampton University. My job as president, obviously, is to help run the university. But more importantly, it's about putting the right team in place because it's impossible for the president to be everywhere. And so on the academic side of things, it's very, very important to have the right provost. On the financial and operations side of things, it's very important to have the right chief financial officer. And then in terms of bringing people to the university, our university relations and our public relations and talking about the great things that are happening at the university and reaching broad audiences has also been very, very important. All of those people and more, to include the experience that the students are having at the university, are so very, very important. And so for me, in terms of leadership traits, I would say that the number one thing is to build great teams that can impact the vision that you want to put in place. Next, I do talk about the vision for the university. And as you might have seen in our strategic plan, one of the things that I, as a leader, always feel that is important when going into a large, complex organization is to establish a vision, direction, and priorities for the university. And so in my case, the vision that I, along with the Board of Trustees, established for the university was to deliver the number one student experience in America. And so why did we choose that vision? Well, it goes back to the experience that you had when you were at Hampton, Eric, and the experience that I had. And at the end of the day, what we realized was that we can talk in platitudes about the university, but nothing talks louder than the experience that our students are having. And so we set that as our foundation. And so one of the skills I think that every leader has to bring to an organization is a vision. And then not just a vision, but then the goals that go along with that vision. And in our strategic plan, we've laid out 6 very specific goals. Another thing that I think I bring, and I have learned this from some of my colleagues, as well as some of my mentors, especially at a historically Black institution, it's so important for the president to be visible. Our students, our faculty, staff, and others really want to see you. They want you to be a part of their experience. They don't want a leader in an ivory tower. They want someone who will meet them in the cafeteria, occasionally show up in their classes, see them in the student union. They want a real person. And so one of the leadership qualities I've always attempted to bring to whatever role that I'm in is this quality of just being present in the moment and celebrating the successes of our students, as well as being involved in those areas where things aren't going so well. And so those are some, not all of the leadership qualities that I try and bring to the job. And if I had to mention just one more, it would certainly be approaching the job with passion and integrity and a sense of wanting the university to succeed and that desire to see the organization succeed far beyond your own individual expectations.
Yeah, and you can feel the things like even with you being visible. I just know the homecomings that I've attended. It's like it seems like I was walking past you several times, and it's not like, hey, there's the president of university, but you're constantly visible and out there, and I think people feel comfortable with approaching you and asking you questions. I am curious, like the vision about the number one student experience in America. Like how will you know that you've achieved that vision?
I think that a vision is by definition aspirational. I don't know if you ever completely get there. It is an azimuth and it is a direction, and it is that vision that we all aspire to. Now, there are tangible waypoints that I believe are telling us whether or not we're moving towards the vision. And so I would tell you that the increase in enrollment itself is as much about the fact that students at this university are having a wonderful experience. At the end of the day, I can have a wonderful university relations section, and we can put all kinds of things on social media and certainly on our website and on other platforms. And I can go on shows like this and talk about how great it is at Hampton University. But at the end of the day, our students are the ones who will tell us whether or not we're being successful. And they will tell us in things like whether or not they choose to come to this wonderful university. And so I would say that that is one of the waypoints. Another one is we have some very specific goals. And I won't name them all, but we have 6 in our strategic plan. And one is around academic excellence. And in that academic excellence area, we talk about the level of retention we're attempting to achieve, improvement in our graduation rates. Those are all things that are very, very tangible. Number 2 goal is talking about research and innovation. And we would like to increase the level of research at Hampton University. And year over year, we're attempting to improve the level of research awards and the number of PhDs that we're producing at the university. Alumni engagement. We talk about the number of visits that we do with our alumni. And then to tonight's subject, the level, how those engagements pay off in alumni giving back to the university. And so those are some ways with regard to achieving the vision, some tangible ways that we know we're on track for delivering the number 1 student experience in America.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? As I was kind of preparing for this interview, there's some things that Hampton is doing that I didn't like. I was today years old when I when I realized that you were doing this. Like, for example, can you talk about like the financial literacy initiative where you're giving students access to investment accounts? I just thought that's outstanding. Can you talk about how that works?
When I got here and we started developing our strategic plan, we wanted to make sure that our plan had an impact not just in the classroom. This goes to the second part of the Hampton motto around an education for life. We know that financial literacy within our community is an area that needs dramatic improvement. And we felt that here at Hampton University and at HBCUs in general is the right place to engage that conversation in a much more intentional way. And so we have reached out and done some really positive things in that regard. So first, we are attempting from freshman year to engage students in a financial literacy course. And so we've collaborated with an organization called SFEPD, and it's a financial literacy organization that has an online financial literacy course that would normally cost you about $3,000 to take individually if you've had to purchase it. And they're providing it for our students for free. It's about a 10-hour course if you take the course, and it focuses on all of the basics of financial literacy that many of our students don't come here with. So that's one thing that we've done. The next, we are giving students access to, through a company called Blackwell, the ability to open your own financial account and practice the financial literacy that we are teaching. And then we also have an investment club where we've provided actually a very small portion of funding from our endowment for students to try and grow in a positive way through that financial club. And so there are a number of ways that we're attempting to make sure that broad scale over their 4 years at Hampton, they leave here far more financially literate than when they came, and that they're prepared to enter the broader world. You know, like I do, Eric, when you get that first big paycheck and you leave college, there's a huge temptation to go out and buy a brand new car, to go out and get a new credit card, to go out and get that apartment by yourself that you really can't afford. We're attempting through the financial literacy courses here to position our students not to make those mistakes. Look, instead of buying a brand new car, what about getting a used car that you can afford that serves exactly the same purpose? Instead of getting that credit card, what about putting the money in your savings account or in an investment account and then purchasing it potentially for cash once you've saved up enough? And instead of getting an apartment by yourself, why not room with a few people and cut the cost of having the apartment in half or in a third, at least for those 2 or 3 years as you're attempting to get yourself established? Those are the kinds of lessons we're attempting to teach our Hampton University students before they leave.
No, I think President Williams, I think that's really good, because I think a lot of times, students, you learn so much stuff while in school, but then just being able to apply it once you come out, I think it's really important as you talk about the financial literacy, when you talk about, creating your network and all that. Those are things that that it shows that you really can connect some dots as once you leave the campus. Because again, there's a lot of things that if I knew then that I know now, things could have been a lot easier coming out. So I applaud you all on Hampton University on making some of those things accessible to your students.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, you're so right. The challenge for so many of our students is that when they graduate from college, they actually take a backward step before they take a forward step, because they make some of those early mistakes around credit cards and getting into debt. Before you can even move forward, you have to dig yourself out of the mistakes that you've created. A lot of us have that very same story. We're attempting to prevent our students from getting in that position in the first place. And so you're so right. It is something we're approaching with great intentionality at Hampton.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's truly life-changing if someone graduates with a level of financial literacy to keep them from falling into those traps. Man, that's critical. I did want to shift gears a little bit. There's something I'd heard you mention during another interview that I wanted to unpack, because I think this will be valuable for our audience. You talk about making this distinction between what you are and who you are. And I say, if you look at yourself, you got these titles. You're a general. You were vice president. You're president of Hampton. How do you make that distinction, or how does one make that distinction in your mind from what you are to who you are?
I'm so happy that you asked that question, because I believe that it is one of the real keys to success. And so in the way that I think about it, what you are is perhaps your title. Each of us has a profession. Each of us are part of various organizations where you might be the president of the organization or the vice president of the organization. And in my way of thinking, those things embody kind of what you are. It's the external persona. The who you are, to me, relates to your values. It's who you really are inside. What drives you? What's your motivation? What are the intangibles surrounding who make you what you really are? And so let me talk to you about some of the who you are's for Darrell Williams. And so for me, I've always tried to define my life in terms of several different values. And so I'm not trying to tell anyone else that your values have to be my values, but I'll tell you what have always driven me. And so first of all, it's been my relationship with God. And so that has always been first and foremost for me. And I've always felt and I've always known from a child, because when I grew up, you didn't have a choice about whether or not you were going to church.
Right.
And, you were going
That's
if
right.
you were living in my mother's household.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate the value of that until I left.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that was number one for me. And then the next thing for me is my personal well-being, spiritual, mental, physical well-being, because I don't think you can be very good to others, or you can't be your very best to others, if you have not properly taken care of yourself. And so I
Mm.
think your health is so very, very important. Then the next for me really is my family and close friends. And I lump those two together because my family, I have close friends that are as close to me as family are in some cases. And so those relationships are what keep me grounded. It's the people who knew me from when I was a child that
Mhm.
I have the opportunity to reconnect with and remind me of the importance of remaining faithful to who you are and to how you were raised. Then I have a whole nother group of friends that I met in college, and my fraternity brothers and people that I met in the military, student leaders that were here at Hampton University at the time, and faculty members that invested so much in me. And so all of those relationships help to define the who I am. And so who I am, I believe that I am a child of God. That's part of who I am. I am the son of James and Ida Mae Williams, and I have 8 brothers and sisters. That's part of who I am. I am the husband of Myra R. Williams and the father to Jocelyn and Colin Williams. Jocelyn is now married, last name Cooper. I am a person who served in the United States military for 37 years. And so this idea of being loyal to something bigger than yourself and service to nation over time has become a big part of who I am. And now I would tell you that this desire to serve is what brought me back to Hampton University and is part of my core being for being here as well. So I like to think that who I am is also a person of service. And then I would say something that's always been important to me in terms of loyalty and in terms of who I am is loyalty and integrity. And I do my very, very best to be as loyal and to operate with as much integrity as I possibly can. And so those are some of the distinctions for me between your title and then specifically who you are.
Man,
Yeah.
that was. Let me tell you, if I wasn't a Norfolk State graduate, President Williams, boy, yeah, you might be able to get me over there, boy.
It's not too late.
Yeah, I'm
It's
telling you
not too late.
that passion and everything. I
It's
mean,
not too
I'm
late.
in. That's great. That is great. That is great. And I just
And
like the
all
way
of
you.
that who you are piece as well. I'm also someone who likes to have fun.
There you go.
You gotta have fun.
I mean, I like the way that you pulled all that together, and it wasn't about the any of the titles, right? It's just what goes into the man, right? Which is most important, and that then you just know that. I think when you're like that, the title never gets you to a point that you feel puffed up. You really know at the end of the day, really, what's really most important, and the things that you said, from faith and family and all of that, man. I mean, just great stuff.
But Ted, I'll tell you this as well, and I really believe this. It's all aspirational. And I can't tell you how many times that I feel like I've done things that have gone against who I am.
Mm.
And it's a day-to-day reminder of who you are and who you hope to be,
Mm.
and the consistency with which you approach those various areas. But I wish I could be those things 100% of the time, but I don't really believe that I am. Let me give you an example. So when I was in the military, I talked to you about my values around my family being so important to me. Well, another very important part of me, as I described, was my dedication to my chosen profession.
Mm.
And sometimes those two things are in conflict. And so, although my family is higher on the rung than being true to my chosen profession, there were times when I had to deploy and leave my family for 15 months at
Mm.
a time and miss valuable holidays and, you know, Christmas events and school plays. And so, how do you reconcile my family is so important to me, but I'm also choosing at the same time to be loyal to my profession? So, in the round, in the whole, those are my values, but I work every single day
Mm.
to be true to them. But on any given day, they can definitely be in conflict. And now, as I think even longer term, you know, my daughter gave birth to our first grandson, Micah, 4 months ago, and he has now become the center of our world. I think even more deeply about who I think I am and what I want to hopefully pass along one day to my grandson. And it makes you think even more deeply about who you are and what your values are.
Mm.
And I would think that that's because some people can have success in one arena, but it doesn't translate into the next one. Where if I look at you, President Williams, you've had success in every arena you've been in. And I would have to think it's because you're so grounded in who you are and you attract people and opportunities that vibe with that same thing. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think one of my traits is I've always been a student of leadership because I believe that leadership is a transferable skill. And so whether it's leadership in the military or leadership in the corporate sector or leadership within the academic setting, at the end of the day, it still boils down some very specific principles. The art of leadership is how you apply those principles in the various settings in which you find yourself. So if I took this idea, this principle of people is a basic concept, how you treat people. So when I was in the military, I would always say that if you take care of your soldiers, the mission will happen. It will take care of itself. Well, that was fine when I was in the Army. But then in the military, I often worked with troopers from all of the services. And so imagine saying to a Marine, if you take care of the soldiers, the mission will happen. No. So you broaden that definition to say if you take care of the troops, the principle is exactly the same.
Mm.
Then when I went to certain agencies within the military, my last assignment, I was at a place called Defense Logistics Agency that was 99% civilian. And so if you take care of the troops, it doesn't work in that setting.
Mm.
And it became if you take care of the people,
Hmm.
the mission will happen. And that basic idea about treating people as the secret sauce of your organization and any success that you hope to achieve has been fundamental to the way that I approach my responsibilities. And so it didn't matter whether it was with a small organization of 45 soldiers or an organization of 22,000 service members from all services and contractors, or an organization of 25,000 civilians. And it didn't matter when I went to the corporate sector, when a part of my responsibilities took me to lead a profit and loss center in the United Kingdom, where my entire workforce was from the UK, or coming here to Hampton University in a completely academic setting. The principle of how you treat people is one that transcends where you serve. And so for me, it's all about leadership and being able to adapt your leadership style and expertise to the environment in which you place yourself. The next one is something I talked about earlier, and that is operating with transparency and with integrity and treating people, again, the way that you wish to be treated. The next thing in my assessment is you have to always know what you don't know. And so when I came here to this academic setting, I came here with great humility. I knew and I know how to run large, complex organizations. I've done that for many, many years in my military life, and then after that in the corporate sector. But I had to understand that coming to the academic setting is a different one still. I don't have a lot of experience up to this point in working directly with faculty and working directly with a staff at a university. And so it was important for me to be prepared to listen and to approach it with humility, while at the same time remaining confident in what I bring to the organization. Collectively, we've been able to take the organization to yet another level. But it is so important to understand not just what you know and what you bring to an organization, but also what you don't know, and then be able to be a lifelong learner and remain excited about new opportunities and innovation, and remain curious to take yourself not too seriously and the organization to another level.
When you just touched on the whole thing around innovation, right? I've been wanting to get to that. And being in this role for so many years, decades, and you've seen things change. And like now with, how much technology is a part of everything. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, from that experience, I think, of a student, say 20, 30 years ago, to that experience now, and, how to bring people together, and the whole learning experience. Just so much with technology. Sometimes I think, I'm like, man, it sure would be good to go back to school and just have access to that.
You're so right. But I think the bottom line is you either evolve or you become irrelevant. But we all remember coming into college, and it was at the very beginning of bringing computers into the fray, and then how they would impact education. And then you were certainly around for the .com boom, and then you were certainly around for the whole explosion in social media. And now all of the discussion is around artificial intelligence and machine learning and virtual reality and augmented reality. And you must remain curious. You must remain in a position where you're willing to evolve, or you will become irrelevant. And so the students that are arriving on our campuses today are largely digital natives. They've grown up at a time when they know more about social media than you and I do. And quite frankly, the average 10-year-old with a cell phone can run circles around your knowledge about how to use technology. And just think about where they'll be 5 years or 10 years from now. And so here at Hampton University, we're very, very thoughtful and are involved in making sure that we're providing a curriculum that's not just relevant today, but we're already thinking about how we'll continue to provide that #1 student experience tomorrow. And a lot of that certainly involves now the whole aspect of introducing and incorporating artificial intelligence.
Mm.
But you're absolutely right. You have to stay with your game. And if you need to go to online platform and do some adult learning, you can't afford to miss this evolution of artificial intelligence, or you will very, very quickly fall behind the students that we have at the university today.
That was a great answer. You addressed everything in that answer. I was just also thinking about this, when we were dealing with COVID a couple years ago, like when that whole situation was happening, I would have liked to have been around you to kind of hear, okay, what's the game plan? Like, let's assess what we're dealing with. Let's come up with the strategy and how we're gonna execute. Can you tell us anything about that time?
So interestingly, I was still on active duty in the military at the time, and I
Okay.
was in charge of an organization called the Defense Logistics Agency.
Mm.
Defense Logistics Agency provides common logistics support to all of the military services on a global scale. My workforce was 26,000 people across the United States, and we provided 100% of the fuel, 100% of the, almost 100% of the food to all of our troopers all around the world, for every aircraft, every ship, every submarine, every tank within the Army. We provided some logistical support to all of those. We were also responsible for assisting and sourcing all of the personal protective equipment, the PPE, during that entire scenario. And so imagine having 26,000 people around the world responsible for providing that support to the entire military, and all of a sudden everyone's told that you have to do it from home. And so what a challenge that was. So I was not here at the university. I am aware of their response, and like so many universities around the world, in March of 2020, many of the students, or most of the students, were asked to return to their homes and complete the education for that year in an online or in a virtual platform. Hampton University did the same. So some good things came out of that, because I'm a firm believer that while it was certainly challenging in the beginning, it certainly made us stronger as an institution. I think the advent of Zoom and the greater use of Teams and other online platforms has allowed us to pursue hybrid educational models now, because we're all so much more adept at using the online platform. Now, we pride ourselves on the on-campus experience. There's nothing like meeting each other face to face. You can't get beyond that. However, in emergency situations, we know that we have alternatives, and it does create some opportunities for hybrid learning. And so those are some things I would say about what happened during the COVID era. It certainly was stressful, it was challenging, but we learned some new skills. And I think overall we're better for it.
No, definitely. I think it definitely pushed us out of really outside the box. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the theme of so for those of you just tuning in, we're talking about how to move forward by giving back. We've got our illustrious Hampton University President Darrell Williams is our guest. Please feel free to comment, chime in. But I did want to talk about donating and giving back to the university. And I am curious, President Williams, like what are some of the benefits to the university that donating provides that people may not be aware of?
So I want to talk about giving back in a broader perspective. Everyone's thoughts automatically go to money, and it is absolutely important. And I'm going to ask all of our alumni and those who are not alumni to give back to Hampton University and to give back to our HBCUs. But what I want to start with is what I believe the more important aspects of giving back. It's really giving back of your personal time, and it is giving back of your connections. So Hampton is fortunate to have a wonderful alumni base. We're a national university that are as strong in New York City and Atlanta as we are in Los Angeles, as we are in Chicago and Detroit and Charlotte, North Carolina, here in Virginia and Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and Minneapolis, Minnesota and Dallas and Austin and San Antonio, Texas and Louisiana, and I could go on. I say all of that to say that we have alumni in these amazing locations and working for wonderful corporations and nonprofits and foundations. And the most valuable thing they can do is posture those places where they work to provide greater opportunities for Hampton University and our students. And so if you work at Google, or if you work at Prudential, or if you work with a startup company, or if you work with a foundation, I always ask our alumni to think not just about the job you have, but how do you create opportunities for your home by the sea and for the students that are currently at the university? The posturing that you do within those organizations is oftentimes broader in its impact than what you can give on an individual level. And so I ask our alumni to think about giving back in that context. Next, if you know anything about this generation of students, what they prize most is your time and attention. And so they want you to come back to the university and come to their classrooms and talk about the realities of being in the working world. They want you when you come back for homecoming to certainly come back and have a good time, but come and spend some one-on-one time with students that are aspiring to be great in the profession that you're already a part of, someone who's traveled the roads that they're yet to go down. They're asking for your personal time and for your mentorship to save them from some of the pitfalls that you have always found a way to get across. You know, there's this mythical African Sankofa bird that you will often see, and it's always pictured looking over its shoulder. And the message is it's hard to understand where you're going until you come fully to grips with your past. And so I need our alumni to look back over your shoulder and pull forward the students that are currently at the university, and do so with your personal time, as well as by providing opportunities that are so critical to the university and its development. I also ask them to give back in terms of recruiting for Hampton University. So you talk about the phenomenal increase in the number of students in the university over the last 2 years. A lot of that is because our alumni are sending their children, the children of friends and others, back to Hampton University. Look, our alumni in places that the president can't be, that people that are currently working at the university can't be. You're part of conversations when people, friends of yours, are helping to guide their children to make the right decision about their future higher education experience. And our alumni is stepping forward to say, you need to send your child to Hampton University. And so they're giving back in that way as well. And then finally, I will get around to this issue of giving back from your financial resources. And there's no substitute for helping to financially support your university. We get a lot of students at the university. You've seen the increased enrollment, but it's a real challenge to keep them here. Look, it's expensive to come to Hampton. Higher education in general is an expensive proposition, but I believe that it's so well worth it. Well, one of the things that helps to get our students through their academic experience and to achieve their dreams is better scholarships. And so our alumni giving back to the university, in particular in the area of scholarships, helps to keep students in school. And so you may think that my $500 won't make a difference, or my $1,000 won't make a difference. And I can't tell you the number of students that I personally talked to at Hampton University who find it difficult to make it from the fall semester one year to the spring semester of the next year for the want of $500. And so your contributions, your direct giving back to Hampton University makes a difference to those students and to your home by the sea. And so if you want to directly give to the university, I encourage you to go to give to hamptonu.org. Give to hamptonu.org, and you will make a valuable impact to the university. Let me tell you how else that comes full circle, to use a phrase that you used at the beginning. When President Darrell Williams goes to a corporation, Corporation X, and we ask them to invest in Hampton University and its students, among the very first questions I'm asked is, what is your percent of alumni giving? And the question that they are directly, and in some cases indirectly, asking is, if your own alumni don't support you, then why should I? Why should I give back more than the 40,000 alumni you have for Hampton University? President Williams, you're talking to me about the passion of your alumni base. You're talking to me about your national profile. You're talking to me about the excellence of Hampton University. You're talking to me about how you've launched the lives and careers of thousands of people. And so why is it then that they're not willing to give back to the institution that you say gave so much to them? You can't imagine how powerful it is for me to be able to look that corporate executive in the eye and tell them that Hampton University has over 30% or 35% of its alumni who've made a donation. And oftentimes it's not as much about the amount as it is about the percent. And so we started a campaign called 1868 a year or two ago. Hopefully some of you have heard about it. And 1868 is for those young alumni in some cases who are just starting their careers and who legitimately can't give back $10,000. But everyone can give back some denomination of 1868, the year that this university was founded. If it's not $18.68 or $186 or $18,000, 1868 or $18.68 is a pizza. It's one drink. It's one trip to a fast food restaurant. Everyone can give back 1868, and that increases our percent of alumni giving, which is as important as the total amount of alumni giving. What I am asking our alumni to do, we are in the season of giving right now. I believe December the 3rd is our day of giving for the university for the end of the year. As you began to buy all of the Christmas gifts, I'm asking you to buy one for Hampton University to support your home by the sea in the way of giving back and making this an historic year of giving at Hampton University. And so, yes, there are multiple ways to give back: through your time, through your talents, positioning the university for certain for certain possibilities, but then I also ask you to put some skin in the game and go to givetohamptonu.org and give back of your personal treasure.
President Williams, thank you for answering that question from every possible perspective. that really gives everybody clarity on what it means to donate and how donations benefit the university. So thank you. And I know people are really running to donate as we speak. So, and we'll give you towards the very end, which is coming up here, we'll give you another opportunity to provide that information again so people can make those donations. So we're at the final segment of our show. It's called Write This Down. And this is where we each go around and we talk about at least one aspect of today's episode that we want people to write down so they can level up. President Williams, you are our guest of honor. What do you feel people need to write down based off of today's episode?
I think they need to write down givetohamptonu.org. I mean, that was what today was all about. Right? It was this give back segment, and that's the number one thing I would ask you to do. The second thing I would ask everyone to write down really is around this whole idea of not just giving back to Hampton University, but understand the importance of your HBCUs. Understand how important it is, whether you went to an HBCU or not, no matter which HBCU you went to, understand the foundation that your historically Black colleges and universities have set, and the leaders that have been developed, and the impact they continue to have on our nation. I think they're underappreciated, and they're punching well above their weight class. In some of our very specific professions, HBCUs, for example, for doctors and lawyers, are well above 50%, 60%. If you talk about judges, 80%, I believe the figure is, of judges Black judges started their career at an HBCU, 40% of Black engineers, and so much more. HBCUs are so vital to the fabric of American society. And then I would also add their economic impact. HBCUs are anchor institutions within their communities, and their economic impact on our communities is much broader than I believe many people realize. United Negro College Fund just did some phenomenal work on looking at the economic impact of HBCUs. And Hampton University, for example, in terms of private HBCUs, is the #2 HBCU in America in terms of economic impact, with over $300 million a year of impact. That's a lot of money, and in some of our communities, they are the largest employers. And if our HBCU were to go away, it would have a dramatic impact on those communities. But more than that, I want to make sure that people understand the phenomenal impact that they have on the direction and the future and the provision of talent within our nation and within our world. We provide a level of expertise and leadership and connection that it's difficult to find in concentration anywhere else. So the two things I would leave is give to Hampton, and then give and understand the impact of all of our HBCUs.
Wow, that's powerful. Write that down for sure. Well, Ted.
So President Williams, usually Eric says that this down segment is like my favorite part of the show, and it really isn't, right? Because I always have to go behind the guest, and today has been probably one of the toughest times yet. I mean, because you've just dropped off so much wisdom, and I don't even know where to really even start to even follow behind that. I just, one of the things that you said was, you said approaching the job with passion. I recall you saying that. And I'm just like, man, like there's nothing but passion that's just coming from you in this, right? I mean, like when I said to you, when I first got on this, and with this show first started, and Eric has done this to me throughout. Like he'll bring on guests from Hampton University, right? He either brings on guests from Hampton University, or he'll bring on Omega Psi Phi fraternity brothers. I'm a Kappa, so he does this. So I just got to kind of just.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know those two things before we started. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah,
That's a whole separate show.
So that's what he does. So it's almost feeling like, how when, you see people doing like double Dutch and you're just kind of waiting to kind of see when to get in, right? And I could just see this whole kind of Hampton thing going on. I was just like, man, I was just sitting back. I was like, man, like I could see it was I could see the love for the university from both of you. And I just kind of sat back and just kind of listened to it all. But just listening to you, and again, the passion that you show, the commitment. I also see that, leadership is transferable, right? I see that the different things that you've done, I can see how, you've been successful in all those different areas. And then when you also spoke about, really it's not so much about the title, but really kind of who you are. I mean, there was so many things that you said in this show that I was like, man, like it was just, there's so many things. It was like I got notes all over this sheet right here on things that you've said, and just have really enjoy it. And I can see why the University of Hampton is continuing to grow, and yeah, everyone out there, please give to Hampton University, and yeah, just appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, write that down. And my portion contribution is going to really sound profound, and you've never heard what I'm about to say. This is just really outside the box. Here it is. Give to hamptonu.org. That's my contribution.
Say no more. Say no
That's
more.
right. That's what you need to remember. Not only that, but just really give back to your HBCU. And I just love how he answered that question, that it's not just about financial donations. It's also about donating your time, and going back and reaching for the students, sharing your experience. So give back to your HBCU, give back to your college. I think that's really the thing that needs to be written down. So President Williams, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared. And those of you that are watching us, listening to us, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
That's right. Share this episode. And don't forget, you can also go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those podcasting platforms, and subscribe to the 30-Minute Hour podcast. That way you never miss a future episode. Again, thank you to President Darrell Williams, President of Hampton University. And until next time, have a great one.
Go Pirates.
Go Pirates.